Here's a question. What is a detail and why should we care about it? I am defining a detail as a small part of a whole. Now that is a relative statement. For example, if we look into the sky, night sky, and we pick out one star, in comparison to all the stars in the sky and the sky itself, it is very small and probably an insignificant detail, as we may say. But if we go very near to the star, it becomes much larger and much more significant and can have much more of an impact. So remember that there is relativity involved with the definition that I have using it as for detail. To me, details are very important in my world. I see details a lot, like wherever I go, and how they could affect something else. I tend to think about what difference in small details my actions could have made on something else and how that would have affected something else. Like something small, like one day how it would affect the year, or something seconds could have changed the rest of your life. For example, what do I mean by that? I'll just give the example through a question. For those of you who are drivers, how many of you have ever been driving and then almost been hit by another vehicle or almost hit into another vehicle, but managed to avoid the collision due to a couple of seconds, and realized that if you would have not taken a couple more seconds to accelerate, then you probably would have been greatly injured, potentially. Or maybe another example is if you're frying an egg and you have pan really hot, butter's kind of popping everywhere, and it lands really close to your eye. And then you realize that if you may have been over just a single step or just a couple centimeters, you would have got the very hot liquid into your eye. May have caused some damage. Just a thought. So I guess this kind of leads into another question, and I guess it is really a major question, I guess, is how significant are details in the grand scheme of things? I'll just give you a slight story just to begin where I came up with this question. I remember sitting in English class a year ago, and a fellow student of mine stated that a small decision, such as tying your shoe, will not change the outcome a couple of years from now. However, I would disagree with this statement. Now, why would I disagree with this statement? Well, for one, we can't always predict the future. And I guess, besides the point, how would tying your shoe change a bit? It changes just a slight thing. Here, I'll just explain an experience that I've had that might explain to you where I'm coming from a bit more. I've trained in martial arts for many years, and I remember one specific day of training, I was trying to learn a reaction to a specific action, and I kept messing up, basically. I couldn't quite figure out why until my instructor indicated that my timing was slow. So they said just try to react earlier. So I reacted earlier, and it worked. Timing was the difference between success and failure, life and death. This specific case, potentially training for. But I guess exactly how far the timing was apart was, I think, the most significant of the learning process for that day. And the difference between the success and the failure was less than the time it takes to blink. Very quick. Think about that. So I'm not exactly saying that my classmate's statement was entirely incorrect. I mean, it was pretty much incorrect. But what do I mean by that? That she was correct, but she was incorrect. She was correct to an extent. Here, let me just give you an example real quick of what I'm trying to say. So, for those of you, how to make water. You need 2 moles of hydrogen and 1 mole of oxygen. If you have those, you can create 1 mole of water. But let's say you have 2 moles of hydrogen, and you have 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd minus 1 or plus 1 molecule of oxygen. Now, when they react, you'll still, if you have the plus 1, you'll still have 1 mole of water. You'll just have an extra oxygen molecule. But if you have one less, you'll have just one atom less than, I mean not one atom, sorry, one molecule less than 1 mole of water. Now, is there a difference there? Yes, there is a difference. However, how we judge that difference, it will not change the outcome in that the outcome will be different. However, it will not exceed the boundaries of capable error. Does that make sense? So if that didn't really make sense, I'll try to resay what I said. So what I'm trying to say is that changing small details will change the outcome. But if the change, the result, is not beyond what the room for error is, then the outcome will be considered favorable, that there was no difference. But there was a change. So the outcomes were not identical, but they were considered identical for the specific purpose. Here's an interesting thought, just for the fun of it. Let's think about the concept of infinity, since infinity actually isn't a value. So if you have an infinite amount of values and you take away one of those values, does that value really mean anything in comparison to the whole, even though the whole is composed and is only there because of the individual values? Details. One more thought. I believe strongly in promoting a positive environment, and I believe that one of the things that can take away from a positive environment is the use of profanity and other negative language. Now I had a friend who kind of disagreed with me because he thought that the use of these certain words was acceptable because they're just symbols. So why should we worry about it if they're just symbols? Which they are just symbols. So his statement makes a lot of sense, and frankly, it's kind of hard to disagree with him there. However, assumably, at least to my knowledge, is that most people do not associate positivity with profanity. Does that make sense to my point? And if not, I'll just provide another example of what I'm trying to get at. Alright, here's my example. I just want you to sit quietly and listen to the following words and phrases. Abortion, Auschwitz, cancer, school shootings, torture, assassination, rape, Holocaust, starvation, racism. Now I want you to think about how the words may have affected you. I mean, anybody's mood change a little bit? Maybe you thought certain thoughts when you heard certain words. But we also, these words is what we must remember, is that these two are only symbols. And think about that. They're only symbols, yet they can have an effect. That is where I'm going with the profanity and negative word example. So what we must be aware about is how small things can create a very large difference, potentially. And that's all. So thank you very much.